If you run a Shopify store, build apps, or you're an agency still telling clients Flow can't do that, this episode is going to change your mind. Every week we talk to independent Shopify app developers, but today I'm breaking the rules and we're going inside the Shopify mothership. Shopify Flow, combined with Sidekick, is blowing other automation and AI tools out of the water. My guest today is Paul Nuschke, who runs Shopify Flow at Shopify. We chat about recent updates and what it means for merchants. Sidekick is obviously a big part of the conversation, and we talk about what it actually takes to make an AI build a working workflow in Shopify without hallucinating itself into a corner. Because I love Shopify Flow so much, and I think there's so much opportunity, I've put together a playbook to go with this episode, covering some of the do's and don'ts of Shopify Flow and things that you can do today to automate your business, no matter how you're using the platform. The link's in the show notes, and I hope you get a lot of value out of it. Big thanks to our sponsors, the Support Heroes. More on them shortly. Let's get into it. So Paul, thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited about this one. Let's jump straight into Shopify Flow. I've got a lot of questions I'd like to cover. It's been a big few months for Shopify Flow. And while we were sort of talking about doing this episode, I think at one point it felt like there was a new announcement dropping almost every day. So can you just talk us through some of the most recent updates to Flow and what we should be most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, going back to right after BFCM, we essentially released like 3 very big updates. Like one is changing the layout to Flow to be top down and updating the styles to make it more dense. So just like more stuff fit on a screen and you could like easily scroll your workflow. And we did that because we knew that the Sidekick sidebar was going to be much more needed. Because we released like integration with Sidekick at the same time. Also, we have a testing feature now that we released at the same time where you can preview how your workflow is going to work without actually running it. And we needed like some space around, again, where the vertical editor like helped us with. And then since then, one thing that like we just kind of do regularly is just to evaluate the API and see like what gaps we have against Shopify. And so especially things that are like hard for merchants to work around, because like Flow has this like idea of we have like kind of technical actions that you can use, like send HTTP request or send admin API request where you can do things. Some things are really hard to do that way. Like queries, we don't have like a great solution, like a general purpose solution for queries. We've investigated and this didn't seem to make sense the way it would have to work. So we add queries as fast as we can. So if I hear a need for a query, I just add it. We know not all of them are needed, but I think I added like, I don't know, somewhere in the 5 to 10 range of new get data actions. To cover that. More fields are available now. There's this like it's kind of hard to describe, but like when certain fields in the API, when you try to get them, you have to provide a variable. And if you ever use like the data in Flow, like from a trigger, like let's say it's an order, and you select line items and then product and title or something like that. So you just select it and then it shows up in the UI, like for conditions or whatever. Some fields like translations, if you select it, you still need to provide something. Like you have to provide the like locale code in order to get the translation back. And so we needed a UI experience to allow people to do that. So we implemented a bunch of those fields that require that UI experience. And really what we're trying to do is just like cover all of Shopify use cases. Like you want to do something in Shopify, Flow can cover it.
So that's the goal. Just do everything. Once you've done everything, you've ticked the box and you can hang up the boots.
Well, it never ends because Shopify is continuously evolving. Like I think as a base, like Flow has to be the best automation product for Shopify use cases. Like I think when I started like almost 6 years ago, it wasn't. like you go to Zapier, and Zapier had better functionality. Now we've like far outpaced like what Zapier offers as an example. But
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I'm just going to go straight into Sidekick now because that, dropped. And to be honest, I think it's exceeded my expectations and most expectations with how powerful it was from day one. Like, how big an achievement was it to pull that off? Because I respect why it took a long time to come, because to me, it seems like a very, very complex thing to do.
Yeah, it's funny. We've been trying for a while to simplify like building workflows. We've tried to been experimenting because like there's a lot of merchants who want to automate, but you have to learn about how Shopify works, and you have to understand like how the API names things and stuff like that to really like do certain use cases. So definitely we're all over like Sidekick because it has the potential to help. It is really difficult. Like because there's so many things we have to teach it. Like we have to teach it, like what it's doing behind the scenes really is it's producing a JSON file. That's a workflow. So it has to like know your intent and then be able to make that JSON file. And the JSON file has stuff like, okay, this is the trigger. These are the actions in this sequence. This is the configuration for each of those actions. This is the path that they would follow. These are the variables that would be used in it. And all of those things require like a tool to, for Sidekick to use that it can go get that data that it needs, or like inspect like the admin API so it knows like if I'm checking, I want to see if something's like a point of sale order, it can find an order app name to determine that. And then it's obviously you can hallucinate, which like we can't actually like fully solve. So that's why we need new testing was a big need, right? If you can't test without going to production, and then you have like more workflows that have issues that merchants might not understand. That's like a bad combination.
And so I can imagine. I've played around with it a lot, and like to me, there's still a few things in there. Like it seems to recommend some quite obscure apps sometimes as part of workflows, but it seems to me like the best way to do it is to create, like, don't get too ambitious with the first things you're creating. Probably similar with any AI, isn't it? Like if but it's just so powerful for like reducing some of that drill down time. Like I think that's where I've probably spent the most time in the weeds of Shopify Flow over the journey, is when you're just trying to find a field and you have to, as you were saying before, drill down to order, then line item properties, then customer, and whatever those steps are. That was always the pain in the way. Like you can just like say, I want to, find it, like tell it the fields you need to access or the level you need to do it. Like that's just such a game changer and time saver.
It's huge, like especially for certain workflows. I mean, we're talking like potentially tens of minutes to hours of effort. Like I over time I've tried to recreate an order confirmation email in Flow, and you just imagine how many variables you need to add in order to do that. I mean, it's really laborful if you do it. You can ask Sidekick and it will make you an HTML email, and it's pretty good. Yeah, and it'll get it really close on that the first shot. It's just like an enormous time saver.
Yeah, absolutely. And
run code is another thing it's like really good at. Like you wouldn't expect. Maybe it's great to run. It's like if you need code to be written, open up run code and ask it to do something, and it'll get it.
Yeah, amazing. Because that's something that has been a little bit scary for people, I think, hasn't it? The run code in Flow piece. So no, that's I'm gonna have to give that a go. And have you seen much of any trends, like what sort of percentage or like with people uptaking using Sidekick for Flow? What's the uptake been like?
Very large. Like we we put it like front and center in the creation experience.
Yeah.
So like when you click create a new workflow, it's like right there. Because we're pretty sure people weren't going to just find it through Sidekick.
Yeah.
Although that's actually the people in the admin trying to like automate something, but they don't know like even Flow exists. That has actually become quite a big audience itself and are coming into Flow that way. But the bigger audience is still in Flow. I think it's somewhere, let's just say like around 40% of new workflows are created with Sidekick now.
You didn't start a Shopify store to spend your weekends answering "Where's my order?" emails. The support heroes are a team of trained Shopify support specialists who plug into your help desk, learn your brand voice, and handle your tickets like they actually give a shit. Because they do. Email, chat, social, the lot. You get your evenings back, your customers get faster replies, and your customer satisfaction goes up. Head to thesupportheroes.com and tell them I sent you. The Support Heroes. Actual heroes for your Shopify ad. And one from me, Stork Credit. Discount codes are eating your margin and training your customers to wait for the next sale. Loyalty points are tedious, boring, stale, and your customers just don't care. Stork Credit is the dead simple, native-built Shopify app for issuing store credit instead of discounts, instead of giving Klaviyo another reason to spam your list, instead of issuing points that mean nothing. Customers spend it, they spend more of it, and it's free to install and get started. Try it today. Templates is the other thing in there too that I think is underrated a little bit. Like some days you just want a good starting point for something, and there's such a great library there, isn't there? But do people use the templates, or like what's the best way for, like, you've got something really complex, it's in your brain and you just can't quite get it out. What do you do when you jump in, or what do you tell merchants to do when they jump in?
I think it depends, and I don't think this is like the end state for Flow. Like, I think we need to better help you figure out what you should do, because I think there is still a blank like canvas problem where I have an idea sort of, but I don't even know how to say it. Or like, okay, I given where my shop is at this point in time, what can we do? Like, what should I do? So I think we can definitely help that problem better than what we have now. But I see people, like, probably the recommended way would be just ask Sidekick, like talk it out with Sidekick. You don't even have to ask it to create a workflow, but maybe even just like start with like what problem you're trying to solve, and then maybe it'll help you think out like what like better verbalize like what you want to do. Because like the biggest problem in this whole like Sidekick era or like AI era is the merchants can't always clearly describe what they want. Yeah, like it's not just a Sidekick era problem. That's the nature of what we all do, isn't it? But it's everybody's problem. Like I have a problem saying what I want, like, and I know what I'm doing a lot of times. So but it's still hard, right? And you want to actually say as little as possible, just so it, you don't spend as much time on it. And you don't know what the agent really needs either. But like better figuring out what you're trying to do will get you much further. You must, I guess, see some pretty crazy stuff in terms of what people do with Flow every day. Like, have you seen, you must have seen some stuff where you're just shocked with the level of complexity or the level of detail of what people have built. Have you got any good stories you can share there? We actually keep a GitHub issue of like the really large, gnarly workflows just for future reference. Sometimes actually need them for testing purposes or whatever. But so there's a lot that are just, it's actually like a more because of a quirk in how Flow's layout works, where you can't merge after a conditional statement. That some people just actually end up duplicating a lot of logic. So that stuff like that happens, which I really don't like and want to solve that problem. But there's also like people who have built entire subscription programs in Flow. People are like, Metafields to me is like one of the biggest things you can unlock with Flow. because like you can't set a value for your Metafield, especially like if you want to do something dynamic, like maybe I want a percentage price Metafield or like a sale price or sorry, sale percentage or something like that. You need to analyze a couple of fields and update the Metafield. It's quite easy to do with Flow.
Yeah. And what's your best trigger for that when you're doing, that's something I've always struggled with a little bit, like the product. If you want to just automatically update products, you can use a get query, or you can use or you can wait for inventory update, which can just mean huge amounts of triggers firing. What's the best way to do that type of stuff?
Yeah, we definitely want to make like add the product updated trigger for sure. Like, but the way you do it right now is run something on a schedule every 10 minutes, and then just get things that were updated in that 10 minutes. The advantage of that is reliable. You're less likely to create yourself infinite loops. The disadvantage is, depending on your volume, like if you have too high of an update volume, it's not going to work, because it can't run fast enough. And like you can get basically 1,000 every 10 minutes. There's 1,000. No. Yeah, because you can get 100 at a time. Yeah. So you're getting 100 every 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, that's right. Look, I was hoping you'd have a better answer there, but you've also made me feel good, because that's the way I've done it. So you've told me that I've done it the right way. So,
there is another option, which is some apps have actually built a product updated event. Yeah. The caution I would say with those is, if they haven't figured out how to handle infinite loops and short-circuiting those, then you could get yourself into a problem. If you, for instance, if you want to update a product Metafield based on the price changing, then you're making another update happen, and depending on how that action works, it might just keep going.
Yeah. No, that's a good
call. And that's actually why we don't have the trigger right now.
Yeah, fair enough. And so there are webhook filters in Flow. Like when you're building a Flow trigger, you can do a webhook filter, can't you? So that's what apps use. And but you're saying from a Shopify perspective, you're not confident enough that is truly robust.
Well, the filters are only by value right now.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't help in that particular scenario.
Yeah.
Like I can filter by product status is draft or something like that.
Yeah.
But I can't filter by the status field changed, for example.
Yeah, cool. And I'm going to move into, actually, I was going to split this conversation into some sort of merchant friendly and then tech heavy questions, but I've already gone down the tech path and also started to bring up some of my bugbears or battle wounds from using Flow over the years. But I'd love to talk about like using Flow as a middleware connector, which is something I've seen done and had a few cracks at over the journey, and never been completely sure whether it's something to put forward. But yeah, with things like error messages and retries, and as features like that drop in, it does sort of it does make it more viable and make me think that it is a platform that you can use to replace like a Boomi or one of those other type middleware platforms. Where do you see Flow fitting into that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the use case. Those products, like I used to work at Boomi, so I'm like really familiar with that one. They are broader in the sense like that they each one of them works a little differently. Like Boomi is more batch jobs oriented, so like you run something on a schedule and you do a query. It's not as heavily tailored towards events. They offer a lot of the same reliability stuff that Flow does. Because they're not tuned to events as much, they may have like better tools for huge jobs. So like Boomi, you could do a gigabyte, kind of like get a gigabyte of data and do whatever you want and send it somewhere. Yeah. They're also tuned more to connecting with many systems. And in Shopify, like we're more focused on making Shopify things work, making things with apps work, but less on if something isn't an app, trying to make it work with that.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
there's a few like just big differences there, and the types of use cases you would solve, just given those differences. Probably like, I don't know. If you're looking to solve all of your use cases in one, I don't even know if you really can.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Like
it.
if you're to the level
yeah.
where you need a Boomi, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, look, you're right. There's no one size fits all answer to that. So I know that you're not going to provide that, and it's really just about the number of. I guess I always look at like the number of different workflows you've got, the amount of complexity in each workflow, and yeah, if you've got maybe one complex workflow that you can solve and spend your time solving, Flow could be good. But if you've got 10 of those and you've got them all within Flow, and you've got maybe multiple Shopify stores, it starts to get too tricky, doesn't it?
Good. Yeah.
And that brings me on to ask. I wanted to I think the biggest limitation I see around that is like the version control, and like any form of Git integration is still missing from Flow, and that's something like particularly if you've got multiple Shopify stores, it's really tricky syncing between stores, and yeah, it's so hard even for the best organized of developers, which I'm not one of the best organized developers, so that's particularly bad for me, to keep that consistent and well maintained. Can you talk a bit anything about where that's heading, and if we're likely to see improvements to that anytime soon?
Well, maybe I'll say what like some problems that I want to solve there, but I'm curious like what you need in the Git integration space.
Yeah.
For sure, like flow versions things, like versions workflows. It's a fairly complex versioning mechanism we use. We have the tools we need to help you manage versioning. I think the way that Flow would enable like a more like automated versioning, if you're trying to manage multiple shops, wouldn't be anything directly with Git, because like we can't assume that everybody is using a certain like platform.
Yeah.
But we could API enable things. So we could like allow you to, for instance, take a version that you have and update that workflow to match that version.
Yeah.
And so it's more like a CI/CD integration kind of thing than it is like a Git thing.
Yeah,
but obviously you could store the .flow in the Git file. In your Git repository if you wanted to, and then have some sort of like CI/CD process that would like call those APIs.
Yeah, and it's probably not so much I use Git because it's sort of the default, I guess. But yeah, that's it. I think it's more just that being able to control it, and I guess and we're seeing it with like I think even things like the Shopify conversational stuff in Claude Code and stuff, like playing around with that, and the videos going on at the moment where you can go and tell Shopify to do anything now, but having, I guess, that layer in the background where you can still store stuff and know what's happened and see when it's been done. And that's probably what I was getting to, is just like, what's the best way to manage those multiple flows and keep it so that you don't end up with a massive pile of files, and something goes wrong and you're not sure where to look or exactly when it was updated. And that's I guess the type of thing that like a log in GitHub sort of will give you some kind of something to look at in terms of when stuff was updated.
Yeah, it was a little bit of like a trust thing to figure out there too, like who should be able to like update the workflows. And I assume it would be, I haven't thought through this much, but it'd be tied to some user who's calling the API, or would it be, or are you managing an app in this scenario?
It's a bit of both. I've worked with apps and worked with big merchants as well. And it's probably more so working with merchants where something goes wrong in a flow and you can't tell exactly, like there might be flows that are maybe not named as well as they could, and you don't know exactly who's gone in and updated them either. So it could be one of the developers in your team that's done it. It could also be someone in their team, and so you end up with quite a bit of a tricky, not finger pointing exercise, but just it helps to know who did something and when, and it can be hard to really dive into that stuff, and you can end up looking at the wrong stuff.
Yeah. One of the interesting things we found with Sidekick is, so Sidekick's generating the .flow file basically that you export or import in Flow. There's a lot of things that Flow does that are kind of hard to reproduce outside of Flow's UI. So just as an example, if I add like an add order tag action to a workflow, and I have an order trigger like order created, Flow automatically, once you connect it, automatically fills in where to get the order ID from. Right. Yeah. And that's like a big convenience because this is like something you don't have to do in the UI. We had to teach Sidekick how to do that, basically.
Yeah.
And so there's a risk if working with Flow out via these versioning control systems means also editing a workflow outside of Flow. There's like a validation layer that Flow needs, because if you edit it, we can't trust that it's actually a valid workflow, and it's hard. And it's hard to actually detect those edits that people might make.
I know. I've tried to do it. I've tried to see if I can hack it, and smarter people than me have too, I'm sure. So
we want to do that, and it's like trivial for us to import it. It's just like what happened. It's very hard to know when something went wrong, and that was the cause. Like someone left a comma or put a comma in the wrong place, or put an action that didn't exist in there, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. And there's so many permutations and combinations in there. I've seen that JSON file, and I'm like, do I really want to modify it anyway? So that's very cool.
I understand why. Because sometimes in some cases it would just be far simpler, especially if you're managing across shops. Like I already have the .flow file. I want to change this tag to be a different tag or whatever. That seems like, why can't I just do that?
Yeah, there is a copy to another store button in there though, isn't there? So you can do it through that way if you've got a Plus account. So that's pretty handy still.
Yeah, that would be the way I would typically do it now, because you can just you can copy to multiple stores easily that way.
Yeah.
But then you're it's not like it knows that you did this before, so you're creating a new workflow when you do that copy.
Yeah, absolutely. And apps are one thing that can change there between stores as well quite often. And so I wanted to actually segue into talking about app connectors, because I think they're probably one of the most powerful things on the platform.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear what apps do you sort of look at as your sort of shining light of apps that have wonderful Flow connectors, and what do they do to be special?
I don't know if there's any one. I really appreciate when people make use cases that work for their particular app, and they truly thought about hey, how can we best make use of Flow for our app? And to me, the way I see it is, as a merchant, I want to customize how that app works. It's in some cases, it's just hard to build a feature that will work for everyone, and allows you to kind of do it however you want as a merchant, which is really cool. And I think long-term value for Flow, this is one of the biggest values, is providing a consistent product for all the app developers to hook into to make that customization possible. If you have two apps, they might each build an integration with each other.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to work completely differently.
Yeah.
It's just like, that is not, I don't think anybody, if they were drawing up the best system, would do it that way.
Yeah, that's it. I think
So,
actually I've formed the opinion that almost most integrations, like between two different apps that sit outside of Flow now, it's almost a marketing ploy to build that integration to say we have an integration, because in most cases, like, Flow is a much better way to integrate any two tools, isn't it? If they've both got connectors, then they're both they should connect and you can fully control it, and you're not relying on something outside of that. That's what I see mostly, and it's sort of been what I've done with building my apps as well.
Yeah. So like, there's apps that have done that. You just like implemented use cases. It's adding value for them because merchants can go in there and use it. There's some apps that, like, Flow's almost part of like their offering, where like order editing is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Where they will build workflows as part of like an engagement with like a merchant to handle things that their product doesn't do. And then depending on what they see happening, like if they see, oh, you know what, we need to do this action all the time, they'll just build an action for their thing in Flow.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, if it's really common across everybody and it's like the same thing, they might just build a feature in their product, right? So it's a really useful way to test out stuff, you know. And so I think that it's really cool what they're doing. There's a lot of apps that like have extended Flow functionality, which is really interesting. Like there's like one that does transactional email. There's one that like added triggers. There's another one that actually made a bunch of buttons where you can trigger a workflow just by clicking a button.
Yeah.
Some of it added like general purpose webhook kind of functionality to Flow. I think these are all cool like explorations, and you know, I'm kind of solving real merchant problems too. But
no, that's it. All like Flow's become such a great place for like that extension of the platform, hasn't it? Like that's what you can actually, like, you just search through like the templates library even on there, and there's so many problems, and it's such a great way to discover new apps sometimes, just seeing what they've built in there. So what advice would you give to an app developer around building those Flow connectors? Are there any guardrails or sort of rules or watch outs or things you shouldn't do?
Yeah, there's a number of things I've seen people do wrong, especially on the task side of things. But it happens with like, if we add just like ability to add templates too, so it happens there too. But number one is like read the docs and follow the guidance. It sounds obvious, but like our templates follow, like, for instance, a certain naming convention, so that when you're reading across like 100 or more templates, it's just like easier to scan because like they're all worded in a similar way. Often people will submit them with like their own kind of like sentence structure, and it just doesn't work. On the task side, things I see are, we have this idea, like I can't remember what we call it in the API, but it's where you can say my action requires an order, and a lot of times people will just put order ID and have people manually fill in the order ID. But if they use the order, like I think it's like a resource config field or something like that, that thing I talked about earlier, Flow will automatically populate that and take some burden off of merchants. Same thing with actions, like actually care about your labels, you know, name them right away, follow the right structure for like capitalization and stuff like that. A big one is just like, in terms of like what you're actually building, is just look at what other apps in your vertical have done. That'll give you a good clue as to what to do, and then think about like what merchants would want to automate like with your app, and just to make sure you have the right functionality in there.
Yeah, cool. And the bit you touched
one more
on
ask
before,
would be, I'm sorry, it would be just like ask for improvements if you're missing some functionality. Like there's a dev community, like use it. I would love to get more requests from there, so they can help guide us in making sure you have the right capabilities.
Yeah, awesome. I'll add the link to that into the show notes as well. Make sure people are hitting you up there because there's it's also a great topic of conversation. People love trying to solve problems in there, and so it's been great having you to help me with answering a few of these. I've been a bit selfish with some of these questions today, but we'll wrap up in a minute. But I'm going to leave it with a sort of a what's next question. I'd love to just hear if you've got any teasers about what's coming in the next across the next few months. I'm sure there's some stuff you can't tell me, but I'm going to ask and see what you give me.
Yeah, I mean, we have two of like events coming up. Like there's like Editions coming up. So Flow has some launches that we're doing for that. We've talked about some of the stuff a little bit in here, but I can't. I'm gonna keep my mouth zipped on what's coming there. After that, there's a partner like conference.dev that's coming. So you can expect us to have some improvements to both the capabilities that you can do as like in Flow extensions, as well as like how you do things with Flow. Like just to give an example, one thing I'd really love to solve is when you're building a action, the URL for the action is like hard coded, and if you're using like a tunneling feature that changes all the time, it's very frustrating because you have to keep going into the Flow extensions and updating them. So it'll continue to work. I mean, that's an obvious one that anybody uses it would immediately want that feature.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's funny. There's still a few of those things, but like compared to even like 12 months ago, like the amount of just the speed of the platform, the efficiency of doing stuff, the introduction of Sidekick. Like you look at how it's changed so quickly over that period of time, and it's such it really is a pleasure to work with Flow, and so it's become, I think, probably the standout feature of the platform. So. No, I couldn't be more grateful than to have you join us on here today. It sort of went off our trend of just having indie apps. I know Flow probably doesn't quite count as an independent app, but I think it's very relevant to everyone who's on who listens into this show. And so, thanks so much, Paul, for joining us. I hope everyone listening got as much out of this as I did, and I look forward to hopefully bumping into you over in Toronto in July.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate you having me on. I'll say, like, Flow being a first-party app and really dogfooding the platform hard, like, it's a big deal for the ecosystem. And I know it's not always visible, but we find all of the bugs. So it does add a value, even if you're not actually directly using it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's pretty rare that you get a bug that actually makes it through to production. It's usually, there's limitations, but there's not, I don't see too many bugs on there. So, no, so thanks so much. We'll be back with another episode very soon. And if you, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff that I always tell you to do, because it's a podcast, and we'll be back again soon. So thanks again, Paul.
Yep. Thanks.